Have you ever wondered why some people seem to build wealth so easily while others constantly struggle? The secret isn't how much they make, it's where they don't put their money. Wealthy people follow a financial strategy that most of the public never sees, and today, I'm going to show you the 7 places where rich people never park their cash. These money traps might look harmless or even responsible on the surface, but they quietly drain your potential to build wealth. Warren Buffett once said that the difference between successful people and really successful people is that the really successful ones say no to almost everything, and that includes saying no to these dangerous financial habits. What you're about to learn isn't taught in school, but each of these 7 places reveals a crucial part of the puzzle, a roadmap of what the wealthy avoid while millions of others fall into these common traps. Make sure to pay close attention to number 7, it's the most harmful and the one that keeps people stuck while others move on to financial freedom. This knowledge can completely shift your financial path in the next 30 days, if you take action right now. Let's break down the traps that the wealthy avoid at all costs. First place, rich people never put their money in idle checking accounts. You've probably heard someone say, "I've got a nice chunk of cash just sitting in my checking account for safety." Sounds smart, right? But it's actually a big mistake. Money sitting in a checking account earning 0 interest is losing value every day because of inflation, and wealthy people know better than to let that happen. If you have $10,000 sitting there and inflation is around 3%, that money will only be worth about $9,700 next year in terms of what it can buy. You're losing $300 by doing nothing. So what do smart people do instead? They make every dollar count. They keep enough for emergencies, usually 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but the rest gets put to work. Idle cash is like an employee who shows up but doesn't do any work. Would you keep paying someone like that? Then why let your money be lazy? Rich people move extra cash to high-yield savings accounts offering up to 4 to 5% interest, 40 to 50 times more than regular banks. They also use low-risk options like treasury bills for money they don't need right away. For long-term growth, they invest in broad index funds like the S&P 500, which historically earn around 10% a year. This isn't complicated or risky investing, it's just smart money management that rich people follow religiously. Check your own accounts right now, how much money is just sitting there doing nothing? Could you move some to an account with better returns like Ally Bank, Capital One 360, or Marcus by Goldman Sachs? But as bad as idle money is, there's an even worse wealth killer hiding in your investment portfolio. Second place, wealthy people never put their money into high-fee investment funds, and here's why. It quietly costs you a fortune over time. Most people don't realize how much that 1% or 2% annual fee really adds up. Let's look at the numbers. If you invest $100,000 for 20 years with an average 7% return, a low-cost fund charging just 0.1%, like many ETFs, would grow to about $386,000. But the same investment in a fund charging 2% in fees would only grow to $260,000. That's a shocking $126,000 difference, enough to buy a home in many parts of the country. Rich people know this math inside and out. They understand that fees eat away at your returns just like interest helps them grow. That's why they avoid high-fee funds completely and instead go after low-cost options like index funds and ETFs. These funds charge tiny fees, sometimes as low as 0.03%, which means just $3 a year on a $10,000 investment. In contrast, a 2% fee costs you $200 a year for that same $10,000. Paying that much is like spending $2,000 a year just to store your car. Why would anyone do that? Wealthy people stick with companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, and Charles Schwab, which offer top-quality funds with ultra-low costs. They don't believe in paying extra for actively managed funds that usually fail to beat the market anyway. If you haven't already, take a close look at your 401k or IRA statements, check how much you're paying in fees. If it's over 0.2%, you may want to switch. These small numbers matter. They decide how fast your money grows and whether it works for you or against you. Now, high fees are bad enough, But there's another place the wealthy avoid that's even more dangerous. Let's talk about it next. Third place, wealthy people never put their money into hot trend investments, the kind you see hyped up all over TikTok or social media, promising to make you rich overnight. You've probably heard lines like, "You have to get in now, this is exploding," but that's exactly the type of advice rich people avoid. These trendy investments are often just fads, and by the time they go viral, the smart money, the people who actually profit, have already cashed out. These types of investments are usually extremely risky, unstable, and driven by hype rather than real value. Most people jump in when prices are high because of the excitement, then panic and sell when prices crash, losing big in the process. Think about Dogecoin. It shot up 12,000%, then dropped 90%. People who joined late lost most of their money. The same story played out with GameStop, NFTs, and even overpriced homes during the pandemic. Rich people don't chase get-rich-quick schemes. They stick to solid, proven investments with long-term value. Warren Buffett avoids anything he doesn't fully understand, and he once said, "Investing should be like watching paint dry. If you want excitement, go to Las Vegas." So before diving into the latest hot investment, ask yourself, do I really understand how this works? Does it have a solid history or is it just hype? Am I making this decision based on facts or feelings? If your answers lean toward emotion or excitement, it's a sign to keep your money safe. But there's another common money trap that feels completely normal in today's society, and it's just as dangerous. Fourth place, wealthy people never let their money sit in high-interest credit card debt because it's one of the worst financial traps out there. If you're carrying a credit card balance month to month, you're likely losing money fast without realizing it. Most credit cards in the US charge 20% to 30% interest annually, which means if you owe $5,000 and only make the minimum payments, you could end up paying $12,000 or more in interest alone, and it might take over 30 years to pay off. This kind of debt is like financial quicksand. The more you ignore it, the worse it gets. That's why rich people avoid it like poison. They still use credit cards, but only to earn points, miles, or cash back, and they always pay the full balance every month. They treat credit cards as tools, not traps, and they know that no investment gives you a guaranteed return of 20 to 30% per year, so the smartest investment they can make is paying off that debt fast. If you're stuck in credit card debt, make paying it off your number one priority, even before investing. Look into negotiating lower interest rates, taking advantage of 0% balance transfer offers, and setting up a solid plan to get rid of it fast. While this type of debt is clearly harmful, there's another common mistake that's even sneakier because society makes it sound responsible, even though it quietly holds back your financial growth. Fifth place, wealthy people avoid putting their money into overpriced real estate because they know not every property is a good investment, especially when bought at the wrong time or in the wrong location. You've probably heard the saying, real estate is always a good investment, but that's not always true, especially during market booms like in 2020 and 2021, when many people rushed to buy homes out of fear of missing out. Some of those buyers saw their home values drop by 10% to 20%, leaving them with mortgages that were higher than the value of their homes, a situation called being underwater, which can limit your financial freedom for years. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you can't afford to get trapped like that. Overpaying for a house could ruin your retirement plans and put a long-term strain on your money and peace of mind. Rich people never buy property just because it's popular, they run the numbers first. They study markets, compare price per square foot, track economic trends, estimate neighborhood growth, and look at the full cost of financing. And if the math doesn't work, they'll rent instead of buying. A simple rule to follow: if a home costs more than 25 times its yearly rental value, it's probably overpriced. For instance, a $500,000 home that only rents for $1,500 a month, or $18,000 a year, is a red flag. The wealthy use this ratio to guide their decisions. Have you ever been tempted to jump on a hot investment trend or buy a house during a market peak? Whether it was crypto, meme stocks, or flipping homes, your experience could help others. Share it in the comments. Smart investors know that some homes are just debt in disguise, not real assets. But there's another big purchase that ruins financial futures even faster. 6th place, rich people never put their money into brand new cars because they know nothing loses value faster. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it drops in value, sometimes by 20% in the first year and nearly 50% within 5 years. That means if you buy a $40,000 car, it could be worth only $20,000 just a few years later, and that lost money is gone forever. While everyone wants comfort and safety, the wealthy don't confuse those needs with buying luxury or showing off. They ask themselves, does this car meet my needs, or is it locking me into years of payments and loss? That's why many millionaires drive used, well-maintained vehicles, usually 2 to 4 years old, where most of the depreciation has already happened. They don't just look at the price tag, they consider insurance, maintenance, and resale value too. For example, buying a new $40,000 car and selling it 5 years later for $20,000 means you've lost $20,000. But buying a 3-year-old car for $25,000 and selling it for $18,000 later only costs you $7,000, a much smaller loss for nearly the same comfort. This smarter choice helps them avoid throwing away money. And speaking of wasting money, there's one more place rich people never put their money, a mistake that could cost you everything. 7th place, wealthy people never put their money into financial products they don't fully understand, and neither should you. If you can't explain how something works in 5 minutes, it's a sign to stay away. This might be the most dangerous financial mistake of all. Things like life insurance with investment features, variable annuities, structured notes, or leveraged ETFs often sound fancy, but they usually come packed with hidden fees, confusing terms, and unrealistic promises. Take variable annuities, they can charge up to 4% per year in fees, which is 4 times what you'd pay in low-cost index funds. I once helped a retired teacher who had been sold an equity-indexed annuity by her bank. She was told it offered market returns with no risk, already a red flag. After reading through the 147-page contract, we found her returns were capped at 3% a year no matter how well the market did, and she couldn't access her money for 12 years without paying a 15% penalty. Meanwhile, the advisor who sold it to her earned a $24,000 commission from her $300,000 investment. This shows why it's dangerous to blindly trust bank managers or advisors. Many earn commissions and don't always have your best interest in mind. Rich people only invest where they clearly understand how the money grows, what the risks are, and exactly how much it costs. Warren Buffett says, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing, and that's why he avoids anything too complex. His partner Charlie Munger put it bluntly, buy things simple enough that even an idiot can manage them, because someday one probably will. Before investing, ask yourself 3 questions. How does this make money? What are the fees and who benefits? How could I lose money? If you can't answer these clearly, don't invest. Smart investing isn't about complexity, it's about clarity. Rich people aren't necessarily smarter, they're just more careful about where they won't put their money. By avoiding these 7 financial traps, you're already ahead of most people. 8th place, rich people never put their money, expensive weddings and social status purchases. Wealthy people avoid spending huge amounts of money on things that only serve to impress others, like lavish weddings, designer clothes, flashy jewelry, or high-end gadgets. While the average person might think these things show success, the truly rich know they're just money pits that don't provide lasting value. For example, the average wedding in the US now costs over $30,000, and that's often paid for with credit cards or loans. After the party is over, the couple is left with debt that takes years to pay off. All for one day. Financially smart people ask themselves, will this improve my long-term life, or is it just for show? Rich people don't waste money trying to impress neighbors or followers on social media. In fact, many millionaires live in modest homes, wear simple clothes, and drive used cars, not because they can't afford more, but because they value freedom over image. They'd rather invest $30,000 into stocks or real estate that will grow, then spend it on a one-time event or luxury item that loses value the moment it's bought. They understand the pressure society puts on us to look successful, but they reject the trap. Instead, they quietly build wealth in the background. If you're tempted to spend big for appearances, stop and ask, is this about what I want, or what others will think? Because real wealth isn't loud, it's silent, steady, and strategic. Rich people know this, and that's why they keep their money out of anything that screams status but silently drains their bank account. Ninth place: rich people never put their money, friends or family's risky business ideas. Wealthy people are extremely careful when it comes to mixing money with personal relationships, especially when it involves investing in someone's next big thing. Maybe a cousin wants to open a restaurant, or a friend has a brilliant app idea but no plan, no experience, and no budget. It feels hard to say no, especially when emotions are involved, but rich people do it all the time. Why? Because most small businesses fail, especially those started without a clear business model, solid team, or market demand. The wealthy don't put money into a project just to support someone they care about. They ask the same hard questions they'd ask any stranger. What's the business plan? How will it make money? What's the risk? And what happens if it fails? If they can't get clear answers, they walk away, politely but firmly. They know one bad investment can hurt not only their finances but also their relationships. In fact, many wealthy individuals would rather give a small gift or loan they don't expect back than risk losing both their money and the relationship. If you're ever asked to invest in a friend's business, ask yourself, would I still do this if a stranger offered it to me with the same terms? If the answer is no, be honest. You're not being selfish, you're being smart. Rich people know that keeping emotions out of financial decisions is one of the hardest but most important money skills you can learn. 10th place: rich people never put their money, luxury lifestyles they can't truly afford. Wealthy people know that real riches aren't about showing off, they're about freedom, security, and control. That's why they avoid sinking money into expensive habits just to look rich. You've seen it before: the $5,000 handbag, the luxury watch, the first-class flights, designer clothes, and VIP tables at clubs. These things might impress people for a moment, but they often leave a lasting dent in your wallet. Rich people understand that lifestyle creep, the habit of spending more as you earn more, is a silent killer of long-term wealth. They don't spend just because they can. Instead, they live below their means so they can invest the rest. It's not uncommon for a millionaire to drive a Toyota, wear regular clothes, and vacation on deals. Why? Because they're not trying to win a social competition, they're playing the long game. They know that every dollar spent on status could have been working for them instead, compounding and growing. The truly wealthy don't let ego drive their expenses. Before you buy something luxurious, ask yourself, is this for my happiness, or for someone else's approval? If you're going into debt to look successful, you're walking straight into a financial trap. The wealthy avoid this trap by focusing on assets, not appearances. Remember, looking rich and being rich are two completely different things. If you found this video useful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to not miss our future uploads. See you in the next video.